It's the joys of going live.
I think we're on.
It goes like that. On air.
All right. Well, hi everybody, if you're listening. So this is episode 1 of the Love is Our Nature podcast. And I have with me the amazing Zaina Degaya.
The amazing Cesar Rodriguez.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. So I've never done a podcast before. Zaina has got some old school skills on podcasting, and we're just figuring this out as we go. So we had some tech last minute issues, of course, and here we are. Anything you want to say before we start?
Let's just open and just lead us through some breaths. Let's just, let's land. Let's us land.
Yes. All right. So we're here. We're here. We're going to start with just some deep breaths and get settled in. All right. Can you guys hear us? I see there's a few people live. Let me see. You're doing okay. Christina says we're doing.
She can hear us.
So you can hear us? All right. Okay, I guess you guys can hear us.
Oh, God.
I'll take that as a yes. So this will be forwarded into every single podcast outlet like Spotify and iTunes, SoundCloud, everywhere there's podcasts available, you'll find it there. So let's start with why love is our nature. What is love is our nature? I'm happy that I get to share that with you. Is that something I've been wanting to expand on with you? One thing that you all might not know about Zaina and I is we're just dear friends. Zaina is like a sister of mine, and I don't know where I'd be without her. I'm lucky to have just amazing people in my life, and Zaina is one of them. So here we are in episode 1 of Love is Our Nature, one of many. We'll be having at least 2 episodes a month, 24 in the year. We've already got all the platforms set up while figuring out tech for this one episode that we're doing here. By the way, we're in Miami, Florida, and Start Hub. A little shout out to the Start Hub workspace where we are in the conference room. The next episode will be from Costa Rica. So let's see. So Zaina, what are we doing here? Why are we here?
Well, I think that's a good place to start, right? Like just this name, love is our nature. So what's that about?
Yeah. So love is our nature. So let's go back to 4 years ago. This all started for me when I participated in my first ayahuasca ceremony. Some of you might be familiar with ayahuasca. Some of you might have never heard of it. Zian, if you can do some controls in there, whatever is necessary. We're still figuring out this platform. So 4 years ago, I participated in my first ayahuasca ceremony. I had only heard things about it, but I had heard some really great things about it from Wayne Dyer. Joe Rogan kind of placed that inquiry for me as well, and I thought I'd have to go to Peru, and I'd have to go to Peru and do it over there because that's where the shamans are and everything. And one day, by the way, we got some incense here in case you see some smoke. There's no fire.
Are you all right with it?
Yeah, I love it.
It's a closed space.
I love it.
Look, and then just to center us, you back up just a little. Yeah, good.
All right, perfect.
All right, and then with the tapestry here.
And then we can just bring this a little bit.
Just like that.
All right. Boom.
Awesome.
So don't mind us while we are still setting up the whole office. So Z, when I moved into Midtown, I was helping my roommate move a couch, and he gets a phone call. He hangs up. We're both driving. I'm like, what was that? And he's like, oh, I was supposed to be at an ayahuasca ceremony tonight. I'm not sure that I can make it. I'm like, a what? I'd spent 2 years wondering when am I ever gonna do this? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, because we have to take the couch. I'm like, forget this couch. Can I be on it? And he's like, well, let me see, let me find out. I guess we could make it. We'd have an hour and a half. And just like that, with an hour and a half notice, we signed up to be in my first ayahuasca ceremony. Both our first ayahuasca ceremonies. So there we are. We take ayahuasca in chocolate form. It was much easier on your stomach that way. And I was just laying there. And what happened is I take a deep breath, just like the one we took at the beginning. And when I experienced that deep breath for the very first time, I experienced gratitude for that breath in the way I never had before, and delight. It was like, but here's the interesting thing though. It wasn't my gratitude or my delight. It was coming from somewhere else. And I realized that my body was grateful for that breath. It was delighted by that breath. And my first thought was like, "Oh, you like that, don't you?" And I was like, "Here, take another one." And that breath created a separation where all of a sudden, like this wasn't Caesar. I always thought of like, this is Caesar. This body of mine, my arms, my legs.
So were you feeling your body being grateful for the breath? That was your body's gratitude?
It wasn't my own gratitude. I got present to gratitude, but it wasn't my own gratitude. So right there, it was like a moment of separation. By the way, for all of those of you who are tuned in online, awesome. Hi, Tyler. Lupita, that's my mom.
That's your mom?
Yeah. Gabby, Christina, thank you for being here. Love you guys. So that created a separation for me.
A separation between your body and your higher self?
And myself, right? Like, it's like all of a sudden I was just a consciousness, and then there was my body.
Okay.
So that was like a breathtaking thing for me. I really never thought of my body as anybody other than me. Like, it's like this was me. So here's an interesting thing that I'm going to plug in as well, because it'll play into how this just led to be life-changing for me. And I went in there with a cyst right on my butt. Like on my right butt cheek, I had a big cyst that I'd been dealing with for about 3.5 weeks. I'd gone to the doctor for it, and she tried taking it out. She couldn't. She gave me an ointment, but I couldn't even rub it on. I'd had to dab it on because it was so inflamed it hurt to the touch. And when I arrived in that ceremony, I was like, where am I going to sit? I can't even sit down. So I just kind of had to sit on my side the whole time, and then I lay down. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And as I'm taking those breaths, I'm like, wow, you've been there this whole time. You've been there this whole time. And I never acknowledged you. I never recognized you as somebody other than me. All of a sudden, I started referring to it as body. Because it really was like I was seeing somebody else, just like how you and I are having a conversation now. It was like there was my body and there was me. In my meditative experience, right? So all this, you got to take all this with a grain of salt. Everybody's ceremonies from the people that I've spoken to are very different. This was just my own experience. So the very next thing that happened for me, I just got present to like my gratitude towards my body. Because all of a sudden, I was like, you've been doing all this for me. Like, you've been there for me this whole time. And, like I say, move a finger, and my body moves a finger. I say, let's walk over there, and like, we walk over there. And immediately I was like, wow, like, you're the most faithful servant.
Well, I don't even say like, beat my heart, and you beat my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have to worry about doing breathing for me. I don't have to, all those things, right, that the body does. And what I realized too, as I was being with it, is that the cool thing is I could sense like its way of being. So at first it was a little bit timid, because think about it, it's like where have you been this whole time, right? It was like a lost puppy that had been abandoned. Right? It wasn't sure like if it could open up with me fully. So I was just very tender with it. And I was like, wow, like you've really been there this whole time. And I got so moved. I like started giving myself a hug, and I just keep breathing, and I'm like falling in love with my body just because everything it's ever done for me. I thought of how we say like, oh, dog is a man's best friend. I was like, our bodies are like way even more of a friend than dogs. I was seeing this whole new level of love, like this unconditional love. Because think about it, like your body is not leaving you. Perhaps even more so than a parent, because I know there's parents out there like they've like disowned their children, or kids that they don't talk to their parents anymore. Parents want nothing to do with those kids. Like your body is really not leaving you.
It's not. It's your spaceship for this life.
Yeah,
I say this is my chief commander suit. I'm the chief commander of this ship.
Yeah, and I know for sure up until then I wasn't living a very healthy lifestyle. I was eating crap. I mean, like for me, food was about like let's get out of the way for survival, right? Like my fuel, and we'll keep going, right? So I was like, yeah, for sure, I haven't been eating healthy, like, and my body just has been tolerating all that. And so think about it, like your body's not leaving you. It doesn't matter if you stub your toe, like 5 times. It's not like after the 5th time your body's like, all right, motherfucker, I'm out of here. Am I allowed to say that? And this, it's my podcast,
it's
right?
Show.
So, sorry, mom. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't get up and leave. It tolerates whatever you put it through, So I was like, wow, like what can I do for you? That was the first time I asked that question. Like, what can I do for you?
That's a beautiful question.
Yeah, it would have never occurred to me, but it was like immediately what was just right there for me to ask it. And here's the thing about the cyst, right? So then as I'm giving my body love, I'm like hugging myself, I kiss my hand, and I could feel energy radiating from my hands. It's almost like I was a Reiki healer or something all of a sudden. And I was just giving my body love, and I put my hand on my cyst. At first, I was taking like caution because I didn't know like how badly it was going to hurt. So I put my hand on there lightly, and then I'm not sure where it is. So now I'm pressing. I'm like looking for it, and I couldn't feel it at all.
Wow!
It's like it was gone. At least the pain was totally gone. So I started asking my body, like, how are you so loving? Like, how are you so loving? Because the way it was being with me, when I said, I'm sorry I've abandoned you this whole time, it was like, immediately it was like, I forgive you. There wasn't any resentment. There wasn't any of that. So I must have asked my body like 4 times, like, how are you so loving? And the response was, the way I was experiencing the responses from that interaction with my body, it was like thoughts would just pop into my head. I think it's kind of how they say dolphins communicate with supersonic waves and they translate images. So all of a sudden, a thought that I felt like I didn't think myself would just pop into my head, and it was kind of how that communication was happening. So I was like, how are you so loving? And it said, that's all I know. I was like, wow. But as we kept interacting, I just kept seeing how tender and loving it was with me. So I couldn't help but ask again. And I was like, how are you so loving? And then it responds at one point, that's how she made me. And I'm like, wait a second, who is she?
This is getting good.
Yeah. That's like a little bit more for later. I don't know if we're gonna get to that whole thing yet, right? But what it did say to me was like, well, you might not be ready to meet her. And I was like, okay. So I said, but please, like, what can I do for you? Like, there's gotta be stuff that hasn't worked for you. Like, if you could share that with me, I would really appreciate it. And it took me insisting, it took something for it to finally share, because it was so, I'm gonna say, like, against its nature to ask, right? Like, it was so used to just being a giver, because their bodies are givers. They give service. They are here and they'll do whatever you ask them to do. So I was like, what can I do for you? And I kept insisting, like, what hasn't worked for you? And finally it said, all right, well, it was like what I saw in my head was I see this picture of me like in exhaustion. Well, me, my body, right? Like my body, like exhausted and still going and still going. And I'm like, oh, that's cross country. That's when I ran cross country in high school. And I'm like, oh, it's a sport. They call it a sport where I come from. And I'm sorry I don't have a better explanation for it, but it's just like a competitive sport. And immediately I was like, well, you know what? I see that I just put you through that. And cross country, when I ran competitively, it definitely was, I mean, all of us kind of described it like it's torture. You know, you run 5 miles, and now that you're tired, now you run another 5 miles. That's how you build your endurance, and that's how you keep pushing up like the level of stamina, right?
Wow.
So, but sure enough, like it takes a toll on you, and that's actually why I didn't do it in college, because I'm like, I don't want to keep doing that. It's so tiring. It's year round. If you take a break, you know the competitor is not taking a break. He's doing it year round, so it's always year round. So I was like, wow, yeah, I can see that I didn't request your approval. I didn't run that by you. Like I just put you through all that pain and exhaustion. And immediately it was like, it wasn't even asking for me to like apologize or anything. It's just sharing because I asked. So I said, okay, what next? Like, what else? And then, I said, for sure, like food, like, you know, all that mac and cheese, like all that Wendy's and Taco Bell, like something's got to not have worked. And the first thing it brought up was meat. Now, it didn't say don't eat meat. This could be quite an interesting conversation to have with people, right? But it didn't say don't eat meat. It just said it made it sad to see what was coming through my body. And here's the thing, at this point, I knew what it meant, because at some point in that meditation, because this whole thing's in a meditative state, and I want to do a quick sound check. Could somebody say, if you hear us, say yes, please? We could see you. We could see your chats or your comments. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, I think this is in a couple of different Facebook.
Say something.
Alexandra. So let's see. If I chat here, can people hear me? Hello. All right. Okay. Yes. There you go. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
There's Noah.
Awesome. Noah, JD. All right. Awesome. It's just so great seeing all these wonderful people. JD, I got to give you a call, brother. So there I am, and I'm like, okay, meat. Loud and clear. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. This is so cool. So it said it made, so I was saying that I understood what it meant, because earlier in the meditation, it's like my consciousness had dove into my body to the point that I could see like a sea of cells, like this ocean of cells. And when I would get closer, it's like I was seeing like little people. And every single one of them, it's like I could see that they're not just intelligent, that they know to multiply, right? But they had reason, they had emotions, they observed, you know, like it's like they were their own little people. So everywhere in my body, right? So I could understand how the cells in my stomach could perceive what I put in my stomach clearly. And here's what else came to mind is, just as you and I can communicate now, even if we spoke different languages, we could understand each other, even if it's through signs and stuff, right? Similarly, one body with another body, or like flesh with flesh, can communicate just the same, right? So the way this made sense to me was, as I was putting flesh in my body, my stomach could perceive the message that it came with, you know? And there actually is articles out there about the adrenaline that cows release, and it's kind of ingrained into the beef, right, and stuff like that.
Right before they die.
Yeah, right before they die. So that made some sense to me, and I was like, wow. So that to me was a little bit confronting at first, because I grew up eating meat my whole life. I'm from Central America. My mom always cooked some fantastic meat, and if there wasn't meat in my plate, like that wasn't a meal for me, you know, carne asada, chorizo, all that good stuff. And I was like, wow, you know, for several years, I've thought it'd be a really good idea to not eat meat in service of like humane treatment of animals, but not good idea enough for me to do it. It's great that other people do it. But when it was my body sharing that message, saying that it made it sad, I wanted to do something for it and return the love in whatever way that I was like, you know what, for you, I'm willing to do it.
You know, Caesar, I've heard a lot of people talk about turning vegetarian, and it's not inspiring. No, it isn't, but that's like an inspiring. That's really inspiring. That's great, because it comes from a space of not making anything wrong and just so pure.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Please be patient with me. But yeah, I'm gonna do it. You know, I know enough people that I can ask them. Shout out to Laura McKinnon, who coached me on living as a vegetarian or vegan. Even I was vegan for some months. And anyway, that lasted 3.5 years till not too long ago. About 2 months ago now, I stopped being vegetarian. And I can go into that story, probably not going to do that now. But I learned what there was for me to learn. Long story short, I started eating consciously. Before, food to me was an inanimate object. I would eat a steak the same way I would eat potato chips, the same way I would eat like Cheerios. I don't eat Cheerios, Frosted Flakes. So it was all the same for me, you know. Now I actually do take the time to acknowledge that life. In fact, there's like a little prayer I have that I say over my food now. If it's an animal product, I say, I'm sorry for your pain and suffering. I acknowledge your sacrifice and I honor your life. Please allow me the grace of carrying on your legacy. My sister asked me, like, well, how do you know that animal had a good legacy? What if it was like a really mean animal? And I was like, well, given what I have learned about the natural world, I don't think that would be the case. And I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, and you know, like yesterday at the cacao ceremony,
Yes.
you know, like our words are so powerful. So, you know, you can put vibration into the food.
Yeah.
You know, can we all have the ability to do that. So, you know, I think it's you know, the whole meat thing, I mean, so many people have different opinions on it, but if you're gonna eat it, I mean, bless it first. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, and for sure, and the theme, it's kind of goes, this is gonna touch on the theme of this whole podcast is everybody's in their own journey, you know, so I'm totally cool with somebody that's just carnivore. I have a friend that's carnivore diet, doesn't eat anything but meat. I have friends that are vegan, and I think it's perfect for both of them, you know, like people should really do what resonates most with them and what's appropriate for them along their journey. So, yeah, look at me. I was vegetarian for 3.5 years, and 3 months ago, I would have thought I was going to keep going for a long time, and then I'm not a vegetarian anymore. So yes, so the natural world, right? And I had this whole conversation with my body, and I was like, wow, like you are so loving. And eventually I went outside. I'm laying on the grass. I touched the grass, and I feel like a similar energy. You know, and it's like, wow, like you guys are just as kind.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
Yeah, and I grab a tree, and I started seeing that the stuff that my body is made of and the stuff that the tree and the grass were made of, it was kind of the same thing. And sure enough, in a way, they are made of the same thing because everything in this physical world, it's made of matter. It just tips over a little bit, it won't fall. Right? Everything's made of matter. Everything that we can see that's solid, right? Then there's gases and liquids and plasma and whatnot, but it's all made of protons, electrons, and neutrons, right? So they are made of the same thing. And it was through my body that I learned like how loving everything in our natural world is.
Mm.
You know, our bodies, plants, and how they also have a consciousness in a different way. My body has a consciousness, your body has a consciousness. And then there's your consciousness, and then my consciousness, right? Which is probably something we'll get into a little bit later. Like, what is all that? But the stuff in the natural world, like, to me, it was essence. It was like stuff that's unencumbered by men, right? Like if there's a tree growing, it's different than if there's a chair, right? If there's a chair, like we manipulate it in some way, right? And it's still made up of the same thing, right? But the tree growing from the soil, like if you believe in God, right? Like if God made something, I mean, a lot of religions believe that God made the earth, right? So before there was civilization, there was earth. Like that's God's creation, right? The plants, the rivers, the mountains, the valleys, like that's like essence, you know? And that's one thing that intrigues me about plant medicine, because it is kind of like cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
Right? Some people really enjoy going to church and listening to the sermon. And I think that's great. Again, everybody's in their own journey. There's no right way or wrong way or even better way or worse way, right? I'm just sharing like my interpretation is
It's the blockchain of spirituality.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I just thought of that.
Yeah, well, and there's actually a passage in the Bible that I think is really beautiful. It talks about how I don't know if it uses the body as an example. I'm not a scholar in the Bible, but it talks about, like, I think the body, and it says how the eyes, they can't do the nose's job, right? And the nose can't do what the ears do. So the nose needs the ears need the arms, the legs need the feet, right? And every part is playing its role. I think it's the same way with spirituality and religion, right? Christianity is playing its role, Hinduism is playing its role, Buddhism is playing its role, and the same thing with people, right? People are playing their role. You're playing yours, I'm playing mine, and we're just beating to the beat of our own drum, right? So
then the medicines come in and they play their roles.
yes, yes. So the plant medicine ceremony for me, it was like cutting out the middleman, and for 4 years now, that's why it's been a big part of my life, because it's going like directly to source. And sure enough, most people that have participated in ayahuasca ceremony or some sort of plant medicine ceremony do come back with the experience, and they share that like they got to talk to God. And sometimes it shows up in many different ways, right? Sometimes it's spirits or these entities. And I think that's where our brain comes in, where spirit or source or whatever, this universe is so kind that it'll show up in ways that you understand, right? So because we have this limited human experience. So if I'm going to receive some message, it has to show up in a way that I understand it, or show up in a way that I'm ready to understand it, right? So that's a bit about what love is our nature means, and where this was born, where it came from. And I'm so excited to share this conversation, open up this whole chapter of Love is Our Nature. This is just the beginning of many conversations we'll get to have, and you're obviously welcome as a guest co-host anytime.
Thank you. I'm Z-Love. I mean, anybody who has love in their name is going to be on Love is Our Nature podcast.
Yes.
So, okay, so you basically, like, you had an experience for yourself of like, love is God, like love is source, like, and everything is made from the fiber of love.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And I learned so much through my body. My body was such a wise teacher. Here's one thing I'll just throw in that we probably won't get into that much either. But in that first ceremony, I also realized that my body remembers the conversation I had with it when I was requesting its partnership, right? And just as in most religions, they also do acknowledge how you live beyond your body, right? Like your body is gonna become dirt, and then you're gonna go on to wherever you go on next to the afterlife. That's what many religions say, right? And some religions talk about reincarnation, right? But most religions will acknowledge that, you know, your soul lives past the body. So I remember having a point in the conversation where it, like, very matter of factly pointed out to like why I requested its support, and I was like, wait, what? So it remembered the point of joining, of uniting, and I thought that was that to me was more like, wow, and like you just said, yeah, like you were a yes for me, saying I need you for 80 or 100 years. I need you to be my vehicle, and it said yes. So that, I think that's why a lot of people will share how whenever they're following a certain path and a path doesn't resonate with them as much, all of a sudden, like, they'll feel certain body sensations. So that whole thing's been really new to me as well. And sure enough, I learned that day also how ailments and sickness is mostly our bodies telling us something, like trying to grab our attention. And think about it, like, how else could your body, if your body needs to tell you something, how is your body going to communicate with you? It can't just go like this, like, hey Zena, how are you? I got to tell you something.
You know, it's
Right?
so great, Caesar. You know, my Ricky Tree, just give him so much props. Ricky Tree is a good friend of mine, and he taught me this. Like, plants speak to us. Like when a plant turns green, from green to yellow, that's how it speaks. You know, when you have a little plant and starts to turn yellow, it's talking to you. Give me some freaking water, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just got like, our bodies do the same thing. That's how like cancer could be a blessing, because your body's like,
yeah. And I saw like two different places that illness and ailments come from. Because the obvious one is your body breaking down, right? And the beautiful thing about it is that your body doesn't want to break down. Your body wants to continue to serve you and doesn't want to slow you down, regardless of what you're doing. All it knows is how to be of service. So if you were to, just start eating like dirt from the ground, if you eat it one time, like, you might be fine, carry on with your life. But then if you have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 5 days in a row, then your body's going to break down. Not because it hates you, because it can't help it. That's it. It's just a mechanical breakdown, So that's one place where illness comes from what I learned. And the second place, which is the more interesting one, is your body kind of tugging at you, prodding, saying, hey, remember why you came? I guess you talked to me about something when we became a team.
Yes.
Like, and you're not doing anything about that.
And I'm not going to step over it.
So I got to grab your attention. It's time for us to have a conversation. So yeah, this all might sound really crazy, and it definitely did to me. So if you're sitting there like, what is all this? I had the same reaction when I was seeing all this transpiring in my ceremony. So yeah, I'd love for you to share, if you have anything to share about like experiences that you've had in your connection with your body. And I gotta say, why don't you, before you answer that question, share a bit about like who you are and what you do. Like, you've taught yoga in so many different places. I know I heard recently, like, you were in 108 different yoga studios around the country.
I've so for the last, how old am I? 40 now. For the last 15 years, I've been in the wellness, yoga, meditation world, and I've been in that journey for myself, and I've been teaching along the way. So I've trained over 200 yoga teachers around the world. They're people, real people that are out there making a difference with yoga.
Yeah.
What did you say about the tour? Yeah, Moses and I traveled the country for about a year and a half.
You're in Kirtan, right?
We had a green bus that ran on vegetable oil, and we went from conference. We taught a lot of yoga, but we did a lot of like after school, like at risk with kids. Like we would walk into high schools and I would just look at them and be like, I know who you are and I know what you came here for, boy. I'll tell you something about ADD and depression and bipolar and all that shit they're telling you and diagnosing you with. Let me tell you who you are. And that was my favorite thing to do, Caesar.
Wow.
I freaking love that. I mean, I've worked with
You're
women.
just a messenger.
I started doing Women's Circle, you know, when I did the Landmark Forum and then the advanced course, I got that my mission here is to lift people up, but it was specifically towards women. So I started something called Women's Healing Circles, and when we were on the road, I literally would designate a leader in each city, and I would do a circle in the city, which was just really me being authentic and just being naked with these women. I just took on to just being like vulnerable with women, which was so new to me because I was so intimidated by women. And I just started doing all these circles. And then I'm an author of a book called Thank You for HPV, which touches on what you touch on. It's a book that shares my story of when I discovered that I can heal myself. And when I was diagnosed with HPV the second time, the first time I was 18 and I hid it and I pretended like it never happened. And then I kept getting tested and they were like, you don't have it, you don't have it, you don't have it. And then 10 years later, I was in a very stressful situation and it came back. At that time, I was like, listen up, you. We're going to use this opportunity to prove to me that I'm a healer and to prove to myself that this body can heal anything. Like Dr. Sebi says, like all these naturopaths that have been guiding us like ascended masters, like your body is your temple, you know, like the Hippocrates Institute. They heal anything there. Just go drink some wheatgrass, grow your own sprouts, have that knowledge. So, you know, and if anything, Caesar, just about the healing, what you were saying, you know, it's like, yeah, it is. It's layered, and healing happens. The body is the last part that gets the ailment, and it's the last part that heals. It goes from subtle to gross. So it's like, you know, what I discovered by healing myself, like the moment that I won, I gave up that there was anything wrong with me having this virus. Once I stopped being ashamed and I stopped feeling guilty about it, I was healed. But then my body had to catch up. And then I had to do the work to get my body to catch up. So a virus in your body means you got to boost your immune system. So I started going crazy with organic and wheatgrass and sprouts, and I got fresh aloe vera and I'd rub it on my butt, just like you with your butt, rub it on my butt every day, 3 times, you know, and I just did everything I needed to do because that's what illness gives you. It gives you an opportunity to level up, like step it up. So right now with everybody with the COVID thing, like, woohoo, level up, people. Not only get your vitamin C, get like everything you know to do and do it. And be happy and smile and laugh and all that.
For sure.
So that's a little bit, I mean, it's a nutshell, but
I mean, there's so much more.
On,
like we could spend like the rest of the time doing your introduction, you know.
But in that world, that's what what I've been hustling is a lot of love and transformation and yoga and my personal practice of meditation and dance and devotion. Like, you know, I brought all these candles here. Look, we got red and orange.
She brought like a candle
yellow,
for every chakra.
You know? And it represents really the frequencies because we're all elevating our frequency. And like, you know, you're talking about love is our nature. That's how we elevate our frequency is we just keep living in love. So, you know, just bringing the sacredness to everything.
That's awesome. Awesome. And there's so many things that we could talk about. What came to mind as you were sharing what you know, the yoga that you did around the country. And I was recently at one of your performances with the Mystic Mantra Band. Big shout out to the Mystic Mantra Band. Find them on Facebook, Mystic Mantra Band. You'll see them. Just beautiful people doing God's work, sharing God's music. And I was there for the first time just a couple of weeks ago, and Moses shared this beautiful story. Like, I don't know if it's an urban legend, well, a legend or what. I think it's called the Avalon Mist or the Avalon Island or something. And I bring that up because it very much ties in with what we are wanting to do here with this platform, with this podcast, and what I've experienced happening in experiences like this, like in medicine ceremony or in playing, like chanting mantra with you all in kirtan. And you can probably tell the story much better. Great, we could bring Moses in so I could tell it again. This is the way he did it. But there's a story of this mystical island, right? This magical island that people would go search for, like sailors would go looking for this island. There was so many rumors about that it had all these riches or something, right? But it was so misty, like the fog was so thick and misty, like people could never find it, and you get lost. And then all of a sudden there was warnings: don't go looking for it because you'll get lost and never come back. And what Moses said is that the story went that you would only find the island when you really believed that you would find the island, and all of a sudden the mist would part. So like when you believed, the mist would part and you could see the island. For me, what Love Is Our Nature is about, and what I've seen you all do with the Mystic Mantra Band, is parting the mist of the material world we live in.
I love it. Can I just share a few things about that? So when you hear yoga, there's 4 types of yoga. There's 4 paths, okay? So the Raja Yoga, the royal yoga, is where you find the 8-limb path. That's what we teach mostly when you go to yoga teacher training. That's Ashtanga Yoga, it's the 8-limb path. So there's the yamas, the niyamas, they're like the 10 commandments. Then there's pranayama, asana, the breath work, the physical, all the way up to samadhi. And this is a practice of focusing your mind, like stilling your mind so much that you actually have a shot at connecting with the source. So that's one
everything
pathway. Yeah. And think of the pathways like systems in your body. So there's the respiratory system, there's the endocrine system, there's the digestive system. They work separately, but they work together. Okay. So you have royal yoga, then you have bhakti yoga. So the bhakti path is the path of devotion. So you don't ever have to do a yoga pose and sit still. You could just dance and you can say God's name. So God's name in many languages has a very specific frequency. So I'm Arabic, and whatever reasons, the language that I came into this 3D is Arabic. And when I hear Allahu Akbar, I feel right away that
starts to part the mist.
The mist parts completely. But yoga is what brought me to that, and landmark. I had to give up all my resentments towards religion, but really it was towards the people who made up stuff about religion. And really took the spirituality out of it and made it all these like made up men things. I don't mean like men, but man-made things. Okay, but I share this because these are all ways to access what yoga is about, which yoga is not about, de-stressing. It's not about being flexible. It's not even about feeling good and relaxed. It's about union with God. I don't go to many yoga studios where they use the word God, because people get offended by the word God. But that's what yoga is about.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm actually initiated in Kriya Yoga. There's a very famous book called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. He's the guy that brought yoga over to the West around 1920. And sure enough, like that's what Kriya Yoga is all about, is experiencing God. Right. So,
and you have to sit quietly long enough that you can. They say yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So you have to have some kind of practice that gets you there. And like and that's the beautiful thing, because you can. And look, there's karma yoga is another path. The path of service. That's a path, like devoting yourself in service with no expectation of anything in return for the seeds that you sow, not expecting results. That's a path. And you see how they can work together? So you could like work at doing yoga postures so that you can be flexible, so you can sit for a long enough time where you can start to observe the insanity of your mind and step out of it for just a moment.
Yes. This is so great.
So, and my personal favorite right now is bhakti, like the devotion.
Yeah.
It's
for sure, and it suits you so well. You did that little encore performance that you came in for. Yes, was it yesterday? Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. It's still the weekend.
You know, which was so funny because my teaching is to like, you know, be courageous and like do what scares you. And that's what she did to me yesterday, Margot. She put me on the spot and I was sitting there and I was like, no, I can't do it. I need Moses with the guitar. And she goes to me, no, you don't.
Yeah. She stole the show.
She pushed me. It was so great. But that's what happens, that the roles of teacher. I've been a teacher to her and then she gets to be a teacher to me.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. That so beautiful you said that. My most recent ceremony was just recently in December 19th, 2020. It was the only one I did this year. And one of the things that came up in ceremony is every single person that we run into, every single person in our lives, like they're a teacher. So that just reminded me to what you just said. It's not like you've been each other's teacher. It's crazy the fabric and how this universe, this reality here on Earth is weaved, because imagine orchestrating like the lesson that Margot has for you and the one that you have for her, and that the lesson that you needed to learn from her so you can teach it to Sally.
Yes.
And then you meet Sally, but Sally has a lesson for you. Like it happens like that at a degree of 7 billion. So just awesome. And I love that we're having this conversation because it's needed.
Yes. You know what I'm present to, Caesar?
Just
from what you said, is like that's the world of we. It's the world, you know, that's a we world where I can like, you know, I'd love to share one thing from my practice right now.
For sure.
Like a couple of days ago, as I said, I texted you, I said, Caesar, I can't be on social media anymore. I need to take a little break. It's feeling very unhealthy. Like keep getting triggered by, and the stuff that I'm getting triggered by is the lessons that I need to learn. You know about Ho'oponopono?
Yep.
So I'll just share briefly about Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono is a mantra that states, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But it's not like I'm saying it to the people that I'm judging. It's not like I'm saying it to somebody out here. The purpose of the mantra is that there is no separation. So if I see you being a righteous asshole and I think you're arrogant as heck, because if I could see that in you, then I have it in me.
Yeah.
So I've been spending a lot of time in my closet. I made my closet into a prayer room. So I've been sitting with myself and looking at like, all right, well.
You're covering the microphone.
Oh, thank you. I was like, what? I was like, oh yeah. So I just, you know, I was observing that somebody was being an arrogant a-hole and I'm judging them about it and I got triggered about it. So where am I being an arrogant a-hole? Oh yeah, with my brother. Oh yeah, that's right. I was just judging him yesterday. There we go. And I sit with myself and I just try it like, I love you. You can rap it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yes.
Thank you. I mean, however you do it. And then I feel love towards myself, and then I can be with other people's caca. Because we all have caca. And we all have love, and we all have beauty.
Yes.
So that's what I've been taking on, and that's the world of we. You know, like whenever I see myself going like this.
Exactly. You know, from what you said, also going back to the theme of this conversation, which is nature and love. One thing that as I started observing nature closer and having a higher regard for nature, I started seeing how many lessons nature has for us, like the natural world. It's funny because in our modern world now, we use science to study nature, right? And then the scientists can tell us how exactly nature works, like what photosynthesis is and why the moon tides work the way they work, and like, and then we started studying the material. However, if you just interact with nature, not saying that's bad, there's value in understanding all that. But you see, that's been my pitfall in the past, is stopping at understanding, right? Like, I understand things, but never quite got the lesson, right? Or incorporated the lesson. And for example, with nature, you think about an apple tree, right? If somebody comes, that a-hole comes to the apple tree and it's like, man, I'm hungry. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna take this apple. Screw you, tree. I'm taking this apple. I hate apple trees, but I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat it anyway. Eats the apple, walks away, comes back a week later, still the same a-hole. Guess what the tree's gonna do? Is it gonna withhold its apples from that person? It's going to continue to give that same a-hole that cursed it another apple.
And nothing about it.
With nothing about it, because it's its nature. You know, it's so beautiful that out of the earth comes this plant that provides nutritious food, right, for us to have it. And it provides it with nothing about it, like you said. Same thing like the sun rising.
Tree ain't got no drama, Caesar.
Exactly.
Trees ain't got no drama. You got drama.
Yeah, it's only us human beings that get caught up in all the drama.
By the way, that's Dre's saying. He says that to me. He says, see that tree over there? That tree ain't got no drama.
Yeah.
You got drama.
Yeah. Dre is so funny. I love the stories you always tell him, because you two are so far apart.
I know.
Her boyfriend is so cool. Been together for 8 years, still 8 years. And like, you guys are so far apart in some philosophies, and I just love hearing how that goes.
We just work it. We just work it out.
Yeah. But that really is it. You know, like, we're so intelligent, but our intelligence doesn't seem to be carrying us through perhaps one of the most important things, which is people living a full life, meaning us ensuring that people everywhere in the world at least have food, have shelter, and have a shot at a good quality of life, right? So I think it's 2/3 of the population in the world that don't have their basic needs met. They have to struggle to meet their basic needs. Yet in the natural world, right? If you run into an ant colony, right, and you come back like a week later, that ant colony is going to be in better shape, right? If you run into an area in the forest, like, and you come back 10 years later, that area in that forest, it just grew. You're going to see new trees, new fruit, like more life, right? And everything thrives because it's just following the natural laws. Like, that's all they know. Kind of like my body told me.
Yeah.
Like, when I asked, how are you so kind and loving with me? It said, that's all I know. Right. So I think we do have a lot to learn from nature, from the natural world. And I'm just so excited to.
You could do a whole 54 episodes just about that.
Tell me about it.
Seriously. You know, when you go to Vipassana, Vipassana is based on Dhamma, which is nature. It's the law of nature.
Vipassana is definitely on my to-do list, like ASAP. That's 10 days silent meditation, right? It's
10 days silent meditation, and it's said to be the purest teachings from the Buddha himself. And the actual teachings that he taught when he was alive, because he became enlightened around 40 years old, and he said, I know how to make human beings stop suffering. And he spent his whole life sharing with people how to stop suffering. And the 10 days shows you how to stop suffering forever.
Wow.
But it's the kind of thing, like you said, like, I can tell you about it. It's not going to make a difference. You got to do it yourself so you can, because what arises is you discover what we're talking about. You discover.
Yeah, it's an experiential thing.
Absolutely.
You got to experience it for yourself.
Absolutely.
So,
to be able to sit in Vipassana, what happens is you become less reactive because you learn how to observe the fluctuations of your mind, your body, the thoughts, the emotions, the body sensations without reacting to them. So there's instances of Vipassana where you sit and they tell you can't move for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you'll feel an itch here and you won't scratch your face. When you're able to do that, you can also not react when somebody says something and you feel like...
You know what? I love that you said that, because you took me right back to a moment where I was laying there in ceremony. That's so funny. Hold back that reaction. There's definitely a lot of magic to the pause. I call it the magical pause. If you just pause before you react, like that's such an invaluable practice. But when I was in ceremony, at one point, that's actually the beginning of the whole experience, like certain body sensations. And I remember feeling something right here on my temple, and I just wanted to scratch it, like go like this, like what is that? But this time I didn't. I was like, wait a second, that's not my sensation. That's my body's sensation.
Yeah.
And I started seeing, like, we're just very intimately connected to our bodies, to the point that our body's sensations, right? If I go like this, right, you'll call that me, you're poking me. I'm feeling myself being poked, right?
Yes.
But it's actually my body being poked, and my body's the one experiencing that body sensation. It's just telling me about it, right? Because we're connected in that way. And I'm starting to learn a little bit about paying attention to these cues that the body gives. That I'm a total novice when it comes to that. But in the very little bit that I've explored so far, it's brought me a lot of value, right? It supported me in being more authentic to myself, being more of my essence. So yeah, well, we got a couple minutes left to wrap up.
I think you should bring somebody on here and to talk about body talk, which is a pathway of healing through listening to your body. And there's a whole methodology to it. I'm not an expert in that.
It's called body talk?
It's literally called body talk. It's trademarked. It's fantastic. And I think it'd be something that you'd be like really into.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm excited for all the guests that we're going to have. We already have a few guests in mind, and we're going to just talk all about these things. I think one of the things to take away is the value of creating experiences where you get to part the mist of Maya.
I love that.
Right? I think that's what they call it, right? Like the illusion of this reality. Who knows what this reality is? Could be a dream, could be a video game, could be a digital program, or it could be just exactly what it is, right? Like we could just be a bunch of protons and neutrons meshed together regardless. I think most people that I've come across can talk about at some point getting present to an experience where they get connected to something inexplicable, right? We can call that the transcendental realm. So this is an invitation for everybody. Ask yourself, what can you do to part the mist?
Right. It's really, Cesar, I'm so happy we can end this way. It's really everybody's got their own practices that resonate for them to clear that mist. And for you, it could be like, I don't know, going out and gardening. For you, it could be whatever it is, music, dance, art, be out in nature. So we have like 1 minute left. Can we just close with like a breath?
Whatever you got.
So you guys, thanks so much for joining us. Cesar, it's just been such a pleasure. I love you so much. So just bring your hands to your hearts and just feel how beautiful your heart is.
Make sure you don't cover your microphone.
Okay, cover my mic. And just take a deep breath all the way in. And just relax. By the way, the sound is the sound of creation. You just, Wayne Dyer has a meditation where you just go and then you visualize in your third eye what you're creating in reality. Do it one more time. Inhale, envision. Make the sound. There's nothing we can't create together. It's just so beautiful, Cesar. Thanks so much for having me.
I don't want to stop now.
I know. Once we get going, we can just keep talking, and then we'll do a 2-hour podcast.
Thank you so much for being here, Z. I love you. To many more episodes ahead and sharing more about the journeys. Thank you all for tuning in. For those who tuned in live, the replay will be up within 24 hours in Spotify, iTunes, and wherever. So stick around, subscribe, go to loveisournature.com and subscribe. And you can go to podcast.loveisournature.com and you'll find all the podcasts there as well. So thank you all. I love you. Can't wait to continue to share with you. And we'll see you in the next episode, which will be announced in the Love is Our Nature website and the Love is Our Nature Instagram, which is LUV is our nature.com.
LUV.
Yeah, it was taken.
And we gotta give props to Lupita Viada. That is Caesar's mom.
My mama.
Woo!
Love you, Mom. Bye, everybody. Have a good night. Take care. Till next time.